All right. Part two, as promised, comparing each position group on the 2025 roster to the 2024. Does it look more favorable going into this season than it did last year? Did we look stronger in 2024? Will we be better in 2025? The defensive side of the ball, part two, we discuss on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Longhorns, the show. Jonathan Davis, your host. Today's episode of Locked On Longhorns brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So this is part two of the comparing the 2025 roster to the 2024, each position group based on what we know now. Obviously, Texas can still make a splash in the portal and things may change, but for the most part, we know what the 2025 roster is going to look like. We know who our starters are going to be. So once again, comparing each position group, 2025 to the 2024 roster. This is part two. We're doing the defensive side of the ball. If you missed part one on the offense, I'll recap it anyway, but you should still go check it out, right? So part two today, each position group on defense. How does it look in 2025 compared to 2024? All of that and more on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also saw Cam Newton made some comments, right? I had to double take. I'm like, Cam Newton has a video about Texas, the Longhorns. That just threw me off. And then it was like the truth behind Texas culture. Like, what? So, I'm already kind of locked into doing part two. I already said that. So I'm going to have to wait a day to talk about Cam Newton and his comments. But that was wild. That's the reason he wear them big ass hats. We got a big head, clearly. Where did that come from? Not Alabama, not Georgia, not Ohio State, Texas. The truth about Texas culture. All right, Cam. So if you missed part one, like I said, I'm going to recap it. It started with the offense. I talked about the quarterback position and how I felt that in 2025 we'll be in a better position at quarterback, which is a hell of a luxury, when you lose one of the best quarterbacks in program history in Quinn Ewers. But I do think that we'll be better off going with Arch Manning, right? And it's no disrespect to Quinn Ewers. It's just you're going from one 5-star to the next, right? And I think Arch Manning is all world. I talked about his ability to make things happen with his legs, via scrambles, via designed runs, being able to get out of the pocket, rolling left, rolling right, being able to make plays, being able to make something out of nothing, right? Evading the pass rush, just adding that extra dimension of athleticism and explosiveness that we didn't necessarily see from Quinn Ewers, right? And so he's going to be able to take this offense to the next level with that athleticism. That's just not a part of Quinn's game, right? Quinn's a pocket passer. And so Arch is going to be a little bit more dynamic in that regard. I also talked about two things that I think Arch does. Well, I guess it was the athleticism, but I talked about things that Arch Manning does really well that Quinn doesn't. And that's, pushing the ball down the field, right? The deep ball. He's really good at that. And we didn't see a lot of that from Quinn Ewers. And so I think that he's going to be able to do the things that Quinn didn't do well. And then the things that Quinn did excel at in terms of the short to intermediate passing game and the ball placement, the accuracy, putting really good touch on the ball. I feel like those are things that Arch Manning will be able to figure out, right? And he'll be really good at those things as well because, he's a Manning. He's an all-world prospect. So, Quinn had him in the experience. You're comparing 30-plus starts to 2, So there may be some growing pains for Arch, but outside of that, I think he can do everything that Quinn can do and, maybe a little bit better. I talked about running back and how I think we'll be in a better position just because, we were kind of making do, getting by with what we had. Trey Wisner being the starter and then, Jaden Blue in and out of the rotation because of the ball security issues, but a very explosive player. I think Cedric Baxter, if healthy, right? It's a big caveat, if healthy, just brings, a higher floor. And I a higher ceiling, right? He's the type of player that could win the Doak Walker, the type of player that could be the best running back in the country, the type of player that you could give the ball 20 to 25 times and he can lean on a defense, but also every time you give him the ball, he can hit his head on the goalpost, right? So obviously he's not as fast and shifty as Jaden Blue, but I think that he brings the best of what Jaden Blue and Trey Wisner do in one package, right? He can do anything on the football field if he's fully healthy at the running back position. So I think we'll be better in that regard. And then you still have Trey Wisner and Jared Gibson to spell him. I said we'll be better at wide receiver just because, we didn't get a lot from Isaiah Bond. Losing Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden are big losses. You're bringing in 5 stars. I think Parker Livingstone and Aaron Butler are ready to step up. Obviously, DeAndre Moore and Ryan Wingo are going to be in bigger roles next season. But because you just didn't get a lot from Isaiah Bond, losing Matthew Golden hurts, but I think we'll be in a better position to make plays next year at the wide receiver position, where it kind of felt like Matthew Golden or bust towards the end of the season. And if the quarterback is better, then it's going to be easier for the wide receivers to produce. Tight end, I said that I'm going to go with Gunnar Helm, right? I think we were in a better position with Gunnar Helm and his experience, what he brings to the table in terms of a blocker and a pass catcher in 2024. But I love Jordan Washington. I love what he brings as a prospect. That's a wide receiver and a tight end's body. I think eventually, once he gets acclimated and can hold his own as a blocker, we'll be talking about him as one of the better players to ever play that position at the University of Texas. But right now, we just haven't seen enough. And so I got to go with Gunnar Helm. And then obviously the offensive line, Kelvin Banks, Jake Majors, Hayden Connor, Cam Williams, all leaving. It's just hard to say that we'll be better off, in 2025. I think we'll be good on the offensive line, but you lost some guys. And so, I had to say the 2024 unit was probably better, but, it's Texas. 2025, you're going to have a lot of talent on that offensive line. They're going to be well coached and well developed by Kyle Flood. So that was the offensive recap. Also doesn't take as long to talk about defense, so I had to sneak the offense in there again. Sorry, defense, because they are the better unit. At the University of Texas, they have been, the more consistent unit, I should say, the last couple of years. So let's start with the edge rushers on the defense, right? And it's kind of hard to say. I know that, Trey Moore just got moved to linebacker. I think he'll still be rushing, primarily. Colin Simmons, he was your best pass rusher last year. He's your best pass rusher this year at the edge position. You expect him to take a huge jump. Only player you're really losing is Barron Sorrell, right? I think you're adding a lot more than you're losing, in terms of bringing back Ethan Berg and Colton Vasek. I think that, Colin Simmons is going to take a huge step in terms of being one of the best players in college football. He was really that down the stretch, but I think he's going to start getting into that just scary, just absolutely wreaking havoc and wrecking game plans. Like when you line up against Texas, oh my God, we cannot let Colin Simmons beat us. All the talk is going to be about Arch Manning, but Colin Simmons is going to be on that par, right? On that level, the Arch Manning of the defense. And then you got some really intriguing players behind them as well, right? Some players that have been on campus, and then, some players in this true freshman class, as well. So, because I don't want to say you're only losing Barron Sorrell. Barron Sorrell has meant a lot to this program. He's meant a lot to this program as a starter, right? He's been starting since we turned this program around, or at least been a heavy rotational piece. But I think he was a starter in 2022. Just a really great player that always shined in the biggest moments, was a freak athlete and did a lot, for Texas and produced a lot on the field. I'm really surprised that he's not getting, more buzz in terms of the NFL, but I get it, small for an edge rusher. I think he's only like 250, things like that. All that stuff that doesn't matter as much as the tape, but you're losing Barron Sorrell, but I think you'll be better at the edge position. You know what I mean? I think you'll be better just in terms of your outside pass rush, right? Whether it's coming from the linebacker position, edge, I think you'll be better in that regard, right? But it really just comes down to Colin Simmons, just being an all-world type of prospect. I think a future top 10 pick in the NFL draft at one of the most premium positions on the football field. If you have a better version of him, plus a lot of talent around him, I think this pass rush is going to be absolutely bananas next year. So I think in terms of 2025 compared to 2024. Your edge, your outside pass rush, outside of the tackles, it's going to be in better shape than it was in 2024. And the pass rush was really, really good at times in 2024. So excited to see it in 2025. Quick word from our sponsors, and then we talk about the linebacker position, right? Headlined by Anthony Hill. What is that going to look like in 2025? We discussed. So, I forgot about the defensive tackles. So we start with the defensive tackles, then we'll talk about the linebackers. I'm getting ahead of myself. Defensive tackles. You're losing Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton. 2024 or 2025? We discuss after the break. All right, today's episode of Locked On Longhorns brought to you by Supply House. Right, get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service. So you always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, but now it's your turn. So join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code S-H-5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, so looking at the defensive tackle position, you had Alfred Collins and you had Vernon Broughton, and all the talk was about how were you going to replace Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, and it would have been hard to be as good as those two players were. But Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins came very close, especially down the stretch. SEC play really starting about. I mean, they were making plays before that. Don't get me wrong, but really starting about that. It was like that stretch where you played Florida, Arkansas, that stretch, like for the rest of the season, they were absolutely dominant. I mean, they were dominant, and just really good at the defensive tackle position, and it helped everybody else, right? They ate up things in the middle, helped our edges on the outside, helped the linebackers make plays. Being able to be clean and get to the ball carrier. They were able to get to the quarterback themselves in terms of Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton. And then obviously, with increased pressure, from them making plays up front, it's a little bit easier to cover on the back end. So, yeah, just great players in Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins. Alfred Collins probably won't make it into the first round, but you're talking about somebody who absolutely will, be gone by, in the first 45 to 50 picks. And probably somebody just because of his inconsistency will be a little bit undervalued, right? Because at his best, you're talking about a player that easily can be in that conversation of I mean, Jalen Carter and Chris Jones, those are guys. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to just sit here and be like, yeah, Alfred Collins could be one of those guys. I mean, you're talking about all pro level players, but certainly a guy that could be looked at as one of the best defensive tackles in the league. Like I said, I don't want to put even though he made the Chris Jones comparison, I don't want to say Chris Jones or Jalen Carter. I mean, those are guys that just jump off your screen, but he has all the traits to be one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. And he's just a freak athlete at that position, 6'6", long, I mean, he's just a freak. And then Vernon Broughton, somebody that, is going to get drafted probably, later, maybe 5th, 6th, but hey, he still shows that you're one of the best, 250 players in college football. So he's going to be drafted and, hopefully he can find a home somewhere as well. So when you look at what you're going to in 2025, you did get some reinforcements in the portal, right? You did go get some players in the portal, Cole Brevard, Travis Shaw, and Hero Kanu. Good programs as well, coming from good programs. Ohio State, obviously, with Kanu championship. Um, Shaw, former 5-star from North Carolina, coached by Mac Brown. You know what I'm saying? And then Brevard from Purdue. All right, so really good programs. Um, but there's question marks. There's question marks of if you're going to be able to replicate what you had. Last year or the last few years at the University of Texas at the defensive tackle position where we really shined. And then you got some young guys. You got some young guys ready to step up, but how ready are they? How much of an impact can they have in 2025? Because Texas is a championship team. Texas is a team that's trying to win every game they play, and they're trying to hoist the trophy at the end. They're trying to be SEC champions and national champions. So we don't necessarily have time for players to get in there and learn the ropes. We need players to be dominant and elite from day one. So you got some young guys, Alex January, Justice Terry, that look like they're going to be really good players one day. Will that be as soon as the season starts? We'll see. So just right now, based on what we know, there's some talent in the room. They've definitely done a good job of restocking the room after losing some really good players. But it's just hard to say that we've brought in enough or we have enough right now to say that we're better off than what we had in Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton. All right, I just can't say that right now. So I'd be more comfortable with the 2024 defensive tackle room, but I got all the faith in I go to war for Pete Kakowski. I say it all the time. I got all the faith in the world in him. I thought Kenny Baker did a really good job too in terms of his first year as a defensive line coach, and so now it's time to develop. That's what you're brought in to do. Now it's time to develop, brother. So got faith that the defensive tackle room will look good this year, but Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins, I think those are guys, and we're going to miss them a lot. Linebacker. You're bringing back one of the best players in the country in Anthony Hill. I jokingly said that Colin Simmons is going to be your Arch Manning of the defense. And that's just more so like, oh my God, everything is arch, right? Whereas it's going to be the same thing with the defense. Like, oh my God, Colin Simmons. Oh my God, Colin Simmons. And it's going to be well justified because you're just talking about a Von Miller type prospect, right? Somebody who can just absolutely take over a game single-handedly from the left or the right side of the offensive line. But Anthony Hill is the real quarterback of the defense, right? If we're making an apples to apples comparison, he is the real Arch Manning of the defense. And man, I'm excited to see him, in his junior year. It's probably his last year at the University of Texas. I wish it wasn't. But you're talking about a defensive player of the year candidate in college football and in conference, right? Somebody that can do everything, get downhill, play physical, get to the ball carrier, run sideline to sideline with great athleticism, very twitchy, can cover, can really do everything at the linebacker position. Just a modern linebacker and a freak athlete, the epitome of a modern linebacker and a freak athlete. So, obviously you got Anthony Hill coming back. He, is a strength and pretty much the mainstay of your linebacker room. So a lot of continuity there. Leonga Lafau, I thought he made a lot of splash plays last year, in spurts when he would come in. I thought he made some splash plays and did a really good job in terms of rushing the quarterback. I didn't mention that with Anthony Hill, but obviously he's very good at that. But yeah, rushing the quarterback, making good plays in coverage. I thought you noticed Leonga Lafau when he was out there. So now this year in a bigger role, I expect him to be really good. I like, Brad Spence coming over in the portal from Arkansas. I like what I've seen from him. So you lose David Benda and Mo Blackwell, I believe. But, I think pretty much what you have at the linebacker position is the same as what you had last year, probably a little bit better, right? So, I think Anthony Hill, Leonga Lafau mostly will be really good at the linebacker position, probably a little bit better than last year. So I'll go with 2025, right? But, that's just banking on Anthony Hill taking another step and Leonga Lafau taking another step, right? And coming back and being even better than they were in 2024. And what I really haven't talked about is with all these guys coming back is that experience edge. You're just naturally going to be better because you've seen more. The more football you play, the more you understand it, right? The more offensive formations, motions, tricks, handoffs, whatever, the more you've seen, the better you're going to react to it, right? Now you got two linebackers who have seen a lot of football in college, and they're going to be better for it next year, especially in the SEC. So I like what we have coming into 2025. Loved what we had in 2024 for sure. I like it a little bit better coming in 2025. Quick word from our sponsors, and then we talk about the secondary, right? Where are we at in 2025 with this secondary compared to where we were in 2024? We discussed that. All right. So we're talking about corner first. And you had the Thorpe Award winner in the secondary. So you had the Thorpe Award winner in the secondary. Jahdae Barron, Mr. 439, Mr. First round pick. Great football player, man. Football character. I've just been talking about it. Football character, man. Just an exceptional football player. It's a hell of a loss. It's a hell of a loss, man. Let's talk about the positives. You do bring back Malik Muhammad. I think he's the player we've seen largely for the better part of 2 years at the University of Texas, not the player we saw in the last few games. I expect him to have I won't even say a bounce back year, but be really good this season. But you got to get your hands on the ball, man. Yeah, you can't be a starting corner and have 0 interceptions in what? How many games did we play? 16. You can't play 16 games and not get an interception, dog. So you got to get your hands on the ball. But I think he'll have a good season. It really just comes down to, how things are going to look at Star. If Jalen Gilbo is going to be on the outside and then Jelani McDonald is going to be at Star, I like that. If Jalen Gilbo is still going to be at Star, you expect him to take a jump. And then, is it going to be Kobe Black or Warren Robertson at outside corner? So I think that question really is going to determine, how things look. There's still some mixing and matching in the secondary. Hell, Ryan Niblett is at Star now. I mean, you think that brother goes somewhere else as fast as he is? I mean, if he can run, if he can play running back, wide receiver, and DB, he probably need to be in that portal. But yeah, it's just a lot of things to figure out at DB right now at corner. And I think that'll kind of shape our mindset going into the season of how comfortable we are with that rotation. But you do like Jalen Gilbo and Malik Muhammad as players, right? And so when you got 2 out of the 3 guys, at least kind of figured out, then you have some confidence going in. But you don't have Jahdae Barron. And it just would be impossible for me to say that I like what we have going into 2025 a little bit more than what we had in 2024 without Jahdae. I mean, you're just talking about one of the best players in the country last year, a top 10 player in the country last year, period. So I have faith that we'll be good at corner, but I think we were stronger in 2024 with Jahdae Barron, and I think pretty much all of y'all would agree. Safety, I think we'll be better off in 2025. And Andrew Makuba is a hell of a football player. He's going to be hard to replace. So he brought so much to the safety position in his 1 year coming back home to Austin, from Clemson. Very good football player. We talk about that Arizona State game all the time and, the magic that Quinn and Matthew Golden made at the end. Andrew Makuba sealed that game with an interception. You know what I mean? So forever indebted. I don't know if he's gonna rep Clemson or rep Texas. I don't know how that goes. You know what I'm saying? But forever a Longhorn for me, for sure. Just a great player, man. Meant a lot to this program in his 1 year. Definitely had a big impact. But you're bringing Michael Taft back, right? You're bringing Michael Taft back. So if you had a hell of a safety duo, Michael Taft comes back. That's huge. If Jelani McDonald is going to play safety or he's going to be at safety, you're bringing him back. Right, Derek Williams is going to come back off of the injury. You got Jordan Johnson-Rubel, who we've heard a lot of buzz about, and then you have Jonah Williams coming in, who you expect to make some noise at safety this year as well. So, yeah, the loss of Andrew Makuba is big, but you just got so many dogs at the safety position. It's hard to say that the loss of Andrew Makuba alone put you at a deficit going into 2025, right? I think you're going to be really strong at the safety position. Maybe if you lost Michael Taft and Andrew Makuba, then we'd probably have a big question mark at safety. But because you have Michael Taft coming back, I mean, you have a top 10 recruit in the country, period. The number one safety in the country coming in. Yeah, I think we're going to be really strong at the safety position in 2025. So that is part two of comparing the 2025 roster to 2024, offense and defense. And I pretty much went with 2025 on most of them. Like I said, it's crazy when you have 14 players going to the combine, you're losing, 20 impact players. It's crazy to say that you'll be better off pretty much in every position group in 2025 than 2024. But, that's the type of program Sark's built at the University of Texas. So, Hoga. Peace.